Welcome to Sustainably U Podcast. My name is Simi, and with me we have our co-creators, Philip and Vibha.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
This is your home for creating sustainability as an individual, business, and society to thrive as an ecosystem. So, in this episode, we aim to understand circular economy and zero waste, the concepts, what are the principles, how is it similar, how is it different, and what are the end goals. So just to start with circular economy, to give you definition of what circular economy is, it's design thinking to narrow it to two words. So everything that you create starts from a thought. So circular economy is designing out waste and pollution and making sure whatever you create is regenerative in nature.
And then you also wrote down keeping products and materials in prolonged use.
Yes. So it also means when you create a product in the design, it should make sure that it has a longevity. It stays in whatever use it's for as long as it can. For example, we are a technology company creating phones. So the phone should not die out in 2 years so the next edition can come in. Is that too controversial?
Yes. So the planned obsolescence, which is what it's called, that the products die out in a certain number of years.
It should be prolonged.
That philosophy cannot be part of circular economy.
All right. What about closing the loop for the circle, part of the circular economy?
So whenever you create something, it should not be linear. It should not go one way towards the dump or towards a landfill. Mm-hmm. It should always go back into something useful.
Back into the economy.
Back into the economy.
As
back
a
into
new product.
As a new product.
Or raw material.
Or raw material for new product. So it is always in the loop. So the loop is that it renews and it regenerates. You're not throwing away anything what's been created.
Infinitely or?
Well, infinitely is the goal, but...
Yes, ideally.
Yeah.
Forever and ever and ever.
However, the product as a whole would probably not. If it cannot, the raw material, whatever is being used, can go back to something else. So it is infinite. It doesn't just go into landfill.
All right, let's take an example. How about, let's say, a plastic bottle? How many times do we recycle or regenerate that plastic?
Oh, I know where that's coming from.
Is that a trick question?
Well,
it is a trick question
question.
because he knows how to degenerate waste.
Right. Well, I was just trying to flesh out this concepts that you have outlined here.
I think it's a great topic.
Yeah. So I mean, it could be wood, for a chair.
No. When we talk about plastic, I mean, there's all sort of different kinds of plastic, the chemical constitution of plastics. The idea is that we have a plastic, whatever you were talking about the plastic bottle. So if it's being used as much as you can. So if you got a bottle of water from the store, you can use it to refill and refill and refill. When now it's been squished and probably has a hole, it probably can go back to a recycling company and can be created into a bag. So the idea is you do not get a chance to throw it away into a landfill. Mm-hmm. Every time it degenerates, it regenerates on its own. Not on its own, obviously with the help of people.
Some agents.
Exactly. I mean, it is not regenerating on its own, but it stays useful.
Yes.
Forever, hopefully. That's the idea of circular economy. Yeah,
the plastic gets used several times, but it loses its efficiency and effectiveness over time. So eventually...
And hence, redesigning.
Yes.
Circular economy is about innovations. So hence, it cannot be plastic. So if there's something that the end result has to go into the ground, that needs to be rethought. You need to innovate there. There's a huge need of innovation there. So in every sector, any industry that as a human being we operate in to create our society or ecosystem or economy, we need to put that thought on how we can remove the waste So there is no waste. So in the current situation, what we're doing when you talk about plastic is reuse, recycle, then we're talking about the zero waste. Because it's already there. It's already been created. You can now reconstitute the whole thing by creating a plastic which can sustain, right? Does that make sense? Or
yeah, it does. So you're saying that since plastic has a certain life that it can be recycled, so you're saying now there's an opportunity there to switch plastic with something more sustainable, another material in place of plastic, right? And so there's an opportunity for entrepreneurship or innovation to happen.
And when that opportunity comes, we make sure that you design out the waste, you design out the pollution, you reconstitute the plastic in a way, or whatever product you want to name it, that it has a longevity. As a product itself, when it comes to an end, it is reused into something else. So it then stays in the loop of being used, being useful.
Okay. Yeah, I do have some good news for towards the end of the show. But yeah, let's continue.
So I was just about to say that the bottles that we have, I mean, we already have some innovation in that companies are using aluminum cans instead of plastic. And that is something that can be reused over and over and over again. So that remains part of the loop once you have it, once you create it.
Right.
So there are some products where we have easier solutions, but there will be some industries where it will be not so easy, right? Like something I can think of is batteries or really harmful pesticides that are not required. So if they are part of our current economy, the way they are being created and used is actually harmful. Are we starting to completely redesign that, or are we going to, at this point, be able to degenerate it in a sustainable way?
Fortunately, there is good news for that. But I wanted to bring in another example. Say chemotherapy there. That's a standard treatment for cancer. And it's very dangerous. It is a poisonous substance, right? So once a waste of that product is created, we have to get rid of it from the environment in a safe and sustainable way. So obviously industry has some solutions, and we have good news in the end.
Okay.
So that is a situation where we don't have an easy alternative. Say pesticides for farm use, we might find an alternative, say natural or synthetic alternative. But in the case of chemotherapy, you may not have an easy alternative. But there is scope for innovation there.
So what you said, Vibha, about do we have to start over again? Circular economy, anything that you're creating new is where circular economy comes in, because it is an ecosystem. Everything needs to be cohesive. I'll give you an example. Like imagine you have a garden where you have planted some fruits and vegetables and herbs that's native to our country. Now, instead of using pesticides, you also planted some flowers and plants. That's a natural pest repellent. To water the garden, you use the wastewater from your bathroom and the grey water from your sink. Or if you have rainfall, you collect the rainwater and you use that. When the food is grown, you eat it and you compost it back into your garden, and it's used to create nourishment or compost that's used as a plant food. And then it's ready for the next season. And whatever tools you use, it's also prolonged. So you're not using plastic. It's a metal tools that you use that stays for a long time. Now, that is a small circular economy. Now we have to imagine it as a society, as a state, as the whole earth. Now that's a circular economy. So that is a huge project. But where every one of us can start is zero waste. So that is easy for all of us as individuals to achieve. You're at home today, you just decide it's too much of plastic I'm buying. So what can I do? I'll go out and buy a cloth bag, buy a few of them, keep it in the car. I come back home, I'm using water. Okay, let me put up a filtration system in my home. So those small changes that you can weed out the waste. So that's the process I think we are in right now. And eventually
Yeah.
we create a circular economy. Because so to move away, especially when it comes to industries, to move away from a linear one-way economy where you create, you make, you consume, and you throw. We need to move away from that, and that's circular economy. Philip, you love waste. Why don't you define? Now we are in a place where maybe we need a definition for zero waste.
It's more like
Right.
he hates waste.
I hate the
Not love
concept
waste.
of waste. There should be no such thing as waste because one man's garbage is another man's
Treasure.
treasure. There we go. So that concept of waste, it's a mental thing, right? That we create in our minds. So
I mean,
everything
there
can be
I like to
reused.
differ. And not exactly differ. It's, of course, it can, everything can be used. The problem in today's society is the excess of waste. Anything you buy has a waste. It's not like in old days.
Packaging.
Packaging, how much you travel, you need 3 cars in a house, the kind of energy we use, how much food we eat. Like, I remember in old days in my home, I belong to a family where we eat everything. We are not vegans or anything. However, during the week, we are eating vegetables and stuff. It's only on the weekend where we eat something special. It was special to eat a steak or chicken or fish or whatever. But that's not the case today. You just go to the supermarket, it's covered in plastic, you bring it back, you eat. So
and then you
that's
throw
where
the plastic away.
not just everything, right? Everything is so, the life, the people, the way people live is wasteful because there is so much to consume. And yeah, you don't need, you go to a shop, a chain retail, buy 10 dresses, wear it one time and go and buy another 10 dresses. Now that's a waste because you're throwing out too much. So there's nothing as waste, but when it's too much a waste, then yeah.
Okay. So in nature, there's really no such thing as waste. Everything that one organism discards is consumed by another organism or several other organisms. And things are continually recycled and reused in nature. So there's no concept of waste in nature. And we as humans should strive, and we can get to that point where nothing really gets thrown away that is without use. So everything that we can think of has uses, and we can find uses for them. And that's where innovation and new entrepreneurship ideas come in, finding uses for things that some people want to get rid of. So like you bring that meat, and with the packaging, that's obviously of no use to you as a consumer. That packaging can be a raw material for another industry. So the difficulty would be to find that industry that would take that packaging. Fortunately, there is good news. There are lots
I would
of...
like to know what is this good news, because I think it's already
Is it
10
time?
times. You
Okay.
said let's talk about the good news.
Okay. So the good news is waste to energy. And that's maybe a broad umbrella term. All waste can be turned into energy or raw materials. And there are several ways to do it. And a lot of us do things like composting. That's turning one kind of waste into something that's useful, a raw material for plants and agriculture and so on. Some people produce biogas from that compost. When food gets composted, heat is generated by the organisms that are by the chemical reactions. That heat can be captured and can heat a greenhouse, for example, and so on. So that's one form of waste to energy and waste to raw materials. And then more sophisticated forms are turning waste into fuel, hydrogen, and there are many processes for doing that. One is gasification, and a more sophisticated form of that is called plasma gasification. And that is the bomb because...
We've been talking about it forever. Yeah.
Yes.
Plasma
gasification.
We need to talk about that. What is
we
it?
should. So you asked for the definition of zero waste, and Wikipedia is a good place to start. It's defined as a set of principles focused on waste prevention that encourages the redesign of resource life cycles so that all products are reused. Did you get all that? Essentially,
Let's
it
read.
means...
That was a load of stuff.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is...
It was similar,
a
although it
thick
was similar to
definition.
circular economy.
Yeah, the redesign just
Yeah.
came in now.
Yes.
It used to be refuse.
Refuse.
Yeah.
So essentially, it means...
But it's still not the same as circular economy.
It's not. But eventually, we want to get to zero waste absolutely in our lives so that all waste is recycled. And so when we reach an ideal level of zero waste, we will have true circular economy where everything is circled back into the economy in one format or another. So what's in... Let's
How
look
can
at...
it be a
yeah.
zero waste?
So we are starting out with a phone, and let's say it's a broken phone that you want to dispose of. So let's look at what's in there. There's glass, plastics, and there's some metals like copper and silver, some maybe lead, and gold. So there are industries that can retrieve the gold and the metals out of the broken cell phone or other electronics profitably, so that the profits from selling that gold will go into paying for the whole process, collecting the cell phones and paying the salaries of the people and the machinery and all of that. So electronic waste to gold refining is a very profitable business today.
So my question is, as a company, let's say I have a company, I have around 50 employees, and I give an iPhone to everyone. Every 2 years it breaks, it comes back.
Yeah,
How
you got
can
some really
this-
careless employees.
Yeah, iPhones do last longer than 2
They
years.
do, don't they?
How can this be a zero waste?
Right.
Where does this go?
So you buy brand new iPhones that come with
So
packaging.
as a company,
Yeah. So
how can this be?
what's the question?
How,
How
can
can-
the company become zero waste?
Okay. So obviously you want to tell Apple to package it sustainably so that the packaging can be recycled and reused or minimized while protecting the contents of the package, the cell phone. So when you get the cell phone in the case, you want to send the packaging material to a company that will recycle it or reuse it. And then the cell phone is given to your employees, and you want to create a culture where they do protect their devices and use it wisely and safely. But mistakes do happen. So at the end of its life cycle, you can then give the cell phone to a company that would retrieve the parts that are usable in there. So they would break it down and use, some of the components like the circuit boards or the LEDs and so on. And the rest of the material can go to a processing plant or retrieving the gold and the metals. The plastics can go into a waste to energy plant where that plastics are turned into fuel for producing electricity. So that's one example of a complete life cycle where you have zero waste and a circular economy at the same time. The plastics and maybe the rubbers and the packaging, maybe the damaged packaging and so on. All of those are hydrocarbons. The hydrocarbons can be turned into syngas or synthesis gas, which is a fuel. Now, synthesis gas can be further processed into liquid fuel or even to produce hydrogen, because hydrogen is a major constituent of synthesis gas. So that fuel can then be used for producing electricity or some other fuel. So plasma gasification is a process where that hydrocarbon is turned into synthesis gas.
So we're already at a stage where a lot of the products can become zero waste.
Exactly. Yes.
Oh, that's
the good
great
news. Yes.
news.
Yeah, that is good news.
So what
Yeah.
that means is there is really no forever chemicals. Like you were saying, there are poisonous chemicals that cannot be released into the environment or into a landfill. So we can just zap it with plasma and consume it.
So what really happens? Is it like a reactor where
Yes.
all these things can go in and then energy is created from there, or is it where you burn it? Or
Yes. Well, you do need some energy to produce a plasma. So the plasma is something like lightning, and it's very hot, intensely hot, and you produce temperatures in excess of 5,000 degrees centigrade or 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And so everything decomposes in the presence of plasma or thermal plasma. So you need some energy to produce the plasma, but once the material is decomposed into syngas, that is a fuel that can then be used to produce new energy. It can feed back into the plant to produce a plasma or be fed into the grid.
This is really a great news. Because I remember once initial days when we met Vibha, you said, I don't know we should be talking about zero waste because it's so scary to people because it's not really possible to achieve zero waste.
It can be overwhelming
Yeah.
to get to that stage. And at this
as a
point, it's
personal-
just like, where do I start, right?
Yeah, as a personal journey.
Yes.
Individually, if you try to be zero waste in your own home. But if there is something like that, where it's a whole industry taking care of making sure that these plastic or these waste that we create is taken care of, then voila, I mean, it's best of both worlds.
Yeah, and we can continue our convenience, our world of convenience and not mindful consumption.
Right. So that's where we need to come back.
I hope not. I hope people do get mindful about what they consume.
Right.
That is something that is, regardless if the waste is taken
Yes.
care of or not,
Yes.
that we become mindful of.
Absolutely, because circular economy cannot exist if we do not change our perception, our mindset
Absolutely.
about how we are doing things, how we are consuming. There's only limited amount of resources we have. And if we continue at this pace, then we probably need, I don't know, 3,
Yeah, because
4
you need to understand,
Earths.
zero waste is only waste management. That is how you manage the waste. The bigger thing is how to create a thinking where you reduce the waste. There is no waste at the first place. No waste, but in every step of the way that we live our life, or we create something as an entrepreneur, as a business, as a country, as a society, we are mindful about what we're eating, drinking, going out to. So the waste is reduced in the first place. So we're not thinking about now how do we manage the waste.
So that is the point of our show is to encourage people to be mindful, to be conscious citizens of the world, where we do use our resources, our time, our money wisely and sustainably.
Would you like to spill the beans on who is doing this? Or is
Well-
that not allowed?
Yeah, is this existing?
Yeah. I do
Plasma
know
gasification.
because he did
Oh.
mention.
Oh, yes.
But
Yes.
I like to know. Would you like to know? Would you like to tell us who
well-
is into this?
There are several companies that are manufacturing the components and putting the plans together. Yes.
Oh, okay.
We don't have one here in the Middle East yet, but there are several in the North America, in Europe, China, one in India, and so on. And they also exist on aircraft carriers, U.S. aircraft carriers, and in some other industrial areas.
Now, when we talk about this plasma gasification, you're only talking about zero waste in terms of material waste that's physically tangible. How about the pollution?
So currently there are waste-to-energy plants, such as Sweden is a good example of a nation that converts its municipal solid waste into electricity using an incineration plant. So they incinerate or burn municipal solid waste, and then that powers a steam turbine that runs a generator and that produces electricity. So one of the outputs of that plant is air pollution. So that has to be captured through what we call scrubbers. So scrubber technology is pretty well developed.
So what is scrubber?
Scrubber is basically something you put on the chimney of a power plant so that the harmful chemicals in the smoke is scrubbed away and captured. And then we can reuse and recycle those chemicals or disposed of safely, which is not the ideal solution. We want to recycle it and reuse it.
What happens, because what's really, really bad is the methane, the bad...
The CO2 and the smoke.
What happens to that when you use these scrubbers? When you say dispose of or you reuse it, how does that happen? What happens there?
Now, most scrubbers use water sprayed water, misted water, to capture the colloids in the air and the smoke. So those compounds are then dissolved or in solution in the water. And then they can be filtered out and then reused. Or they can be chemically precipitated out and then reused for other purposes. So scrubber technology is one thing. Now, the CO2 still goes out into the atmosphere. There are some other compounds that are created that are harmful. They may be carcinogenic, such as furans and dioxins. So those have to be eliminated also. That's one of the drawbacks of incineration waste-to-energy technology. Plasma gasification does not have that problem of creating harmful chemicals, because everything gets decomposed into carbon and hydrogen and oxygen and so on. So the scrubbers can capture any other compounds like, say, chlorine or fluorine from the plastics. Teflon has fluorine, PVC has chlorine in it, and so on. Then there's mercury in a lot of our electronics and so on. So all of those can be scrubbed away, and then those chemicals are useful for industry, so we can reuse them in industry. Yeah. So plasma gasification with these additional technologies, which are already in use, can completely give a clean outcome.
So why have we and the world is not hearing about this new technology? Why is it like a secret?
Oh, it's not a secret. This is one of the several technologies available in the waste-to-energy umbrella, under the umbrella. This is less common because, one, it has been very expensive, and the economy of scale required very large plants to be built. And so the stakeholders would be, cities or military, etc. So it tended to be very large players that would use this technology. The more common technologies are incineration plants, as well as thermal gasification plants, which does not use plasma. So the cost for plasma gasification and then some of its problems are being worked out. And I believe now that they have been worked out. And so now we can scale them down to smaller sizes and also scale them up in numbers and make them economically viable.
So the way they function and the way they are part of the economy is that, does it create raw material, or how does it survive? Is it something that the governments of countries have to invest in, or is this something that can survive on its own because it makes...
As a business.
Yeah,
so
it's a
she
business.
means, is it a business?
Yes.
Is it enough? Can it create enough momentum to be on its own, or does it have to be funded? That's what I think.
Yeah.
So since it's a newer technology, research and development needed to be done to adapt it to common uses. And that is being done. But the manufacturers are private entities. They are large companies such as Westinghouse, for example. So they are all private companies, and they are contracted by governments or by large corporations, such as the waste management company that subcontracts to a city, for example. So they would be big enough to purchase this technology from a manufacturer. So they all operate as a business. So if you are a regular consumer and you're generating waste in your household, that would obviously be picked up by a waste management company, and that waste would go into a landfill, or it can go into one of these plants. And yes, so that's how they would survive, from the tipping fee and then from the products, the raw materials that can be sold or generated from the waste.
So is this like a short-term solution until we get to a point where circular economy is possible? Or is this something that's the future for us?
Yes, to both. Because this is circular economy, because we are returning materials back into the economy.
But if you have a circular economy, whatever you're creating and using is made of, let's say, raw material or resources that can go back to nature, maybe?
Yes, some of it, like CO2 and water vapor, goes back into nature. And so we need to find ways to reduce the CO2, such as through agriculture, planting trees, carbon capture technologies, and so on. So from the syngas, you can make brand new plastics. You can also make brand new gasoline, petrol or diesel or aviation fuel. So you can do that already from that syngas that was generated from your kitchen waste.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is circular in that sense. You can return it back to the economy. And the second part of your question, is it futuristic? Yes, this is also futuristic because we would apply this technology on the moon and on Mars and on that spaceship that we're going to the moon or to Mars, because we would be having waste to eliminate in the future as well. And this is the technology that can help us achieve that in a circular fashion.
Of course, and then we have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
But what a great start by reducing or by knowing that zero waste is possible. So there's hopefully no doomsday. We don't have those sort of messages on our show.
No, we are optimistic. We are hopeful.
We have solutions.
And we have solutions.
We have people who bring in solutions
Exactly.
and good news. Isn't that just so beautiful to be hopeful? Just be me.
Yes.
But
yes,
it is.
It is.
Because I think where there is a problem, there's always 10 people who also want to create an opportunity out of that problem and look at. But it's a shame, Philip. It's not you who created the...
I know. I don't have enough space in my kitchen to make it.
I forgot the name already.
Yes.
Plasma gasification.
Yes. And it does use microwave plasma. So just like the microwave in your kitchen.
That doesn't mean that you start using your microwave.
Right. Don't do this at home, kids.
Oh, Jesus. So that was in fact really, really a great news. Not just a great news, but it also says how fast things are moving when it comes to sustainability. And when all the focuses are on there, people do start creating and people do focus on innovations and things are possible.
So we do have many more steps prior to the gasification step. So that's the topics of our upcoming shows.
And also we will be talking about how that was one of the things that actually we wanted to talk about, if the transition to circular economy is possible or not. But your good news just changed. I don't know if I should be having that conversation. But yeah, the next topic is transition into circular economy. How countries can do it, what are the phases, if it's possible or not, or in 50 years are we looking to live on the moon or Mars?
It'll be faster if Elon Musk has his way.
Oh, we are not dropping any names here. You did it.
He can't help it. He's a fan.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a fan.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, I think it's fine.
But nations are going there. I mean, China, India, the UAE,
Yes.
and the US and many European nations want to go to the moon.
Yeah.
Really quick.
I like to live here.
I love the moon. I mean, from here.
Yeah. Yesterday,
I
my
don't know
son
what
said, "Mama, I know what moon is made of, cheese." And then I'm like, "Really? Haha, that was a bad joke, Mama." No, I like to see the moon from here. I'm fine on Earth.
Yes. So the moon is not for the lactose intolerant, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. Not for you, Vibha.
Not for me.
No. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening in. This was a great show. Stay tuned for our next episode where we elaborate on circular economy, transitioning into circular economy. Thank you so very much. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye
Take
for now.
care.